This is crazy. This is historic. I've never seen the bond market spook equity traders like this.
In that moment, investors across the globe saw it, the largest, fastest stock sell-off since the COVID crash of 2020. But what unleashed this panic? What chain of events led to this financial abyss? The markets had watched anxiously for months as Trump returned to the White House, this time armed with majorities in both the House and the Senate. The economy he inherited from Joe Biden in January was steady, if unremarkable. Inflation in check, growth stable, and the job market humming. But the political winds shifted quickly. In March, President Trump ignited a sweeping tariff war, slapping 145% tariffs on Chinese imports. Wall Street grumbled, global CEOs called emergency meetings, but the market held on. Then came the next wave, radical government cuts, courtesy of Elon Musk's new Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, and a tech-bro advisory team determined to shrink federal spending to the bone. Yet these were not what finally triggered the avalanche. The keystone was the Big Beautiful Bill, the single most consequential piece of fiscal legislation in a generation. So what was it?
The biggest, the boldest, the most beautiful bill ever passed.
Trump boasted at rallies. At its core, the Big Beautiful Bill was a sprawling package of infrastructure spending, tax cuts, and enhancements to the military and border security. In dollar terms, its beauty was breathtaking. $8 trillion in new spending and tax cuts over the next 10 years. Highways, bridges, a renewed border wall, and expanded subsidies for favored industries. Large tax cuts for corporations and high-income earners. At the same time, essential revenue offsets were nowhere to be found. Proposals to close loopholes or rein in entitlement costs were absent.
We'll grow our way out of it.
Trump promised. Economists across the spectrum, left and right, winced. The government, already running deficits of nearly $2 trillion a year and an outstanding debt of $37 trillion, had just signed up for another $8 trillion in borrowing. All in an economy now facing fractured supply chains from fresh tariffs and uncertainty from agency cutbacks. For weeks, bond traders eyed the congressional scorekeeper's numbers, once, twice, then a third time, scarcely believing the sum. When the bill became law, the Treasury Department laid out an issuance calendar, a roadmap of new and rolled-over debt that stunned even the most seasoned market veterans. The bond market blinked, then broke. Yields, which represent the price the government must pay to borrow, surged. Foreign holders of Treasury debt, spooked not just by the flood of new supply, but by escalating rhetoric in Washington about America First and questions about the government's willingness to honor international obligations, began to sell. As selling accelerated, yields shot up still higher, making government borrowing even more expensive. A feedback loop known as the doom loop. Higher yields meant higher interest costs, which was then rolled into the deficit, further ballooning the debt. George Gammon, the relentless YouTube financial commentator, long dismissed by mainstream media, watched with grim vindication. For years he'd issued dire warnings. The debt is too high, the deficit too big, interest rates can't be normalized, and the US will eventually spiral into an inescapable debt trap. In May 2025, that forecast started to come true. And so, the real cost began to surface. Soaring mortgages, vanishing loans, and businesses grinding to a halt. The Big Beautiful Bill, the final straw. A stark reminder, you can only borrow from the future for so long before the bill comes due.